do this question on your own before you look at the solution. Okay, it says although aspirin has been proven to eliminate moderate fever. Okay, so this medicine has been proven to eliminate moderate fever associated with some illnesses. Okay, so this moderate fever is associated with some illnesses, and this medicine can eliminate that. Many doctors no longer routinely recommend its use for this purpose. Okay, so although it can eliminate moderate fever, many doctors no longer routinely recommend its use for eliminating moderate fever. Okay, a moderate fever stimulates the activity of the body's disease fighting white blood cells. Okay, so moderate fever actually stimulates the activity of body's disease fighting. Okay, so these are stimulated in case of moderate fever, right? If you think about it, that explains why doctors are not recommended the use of aspirin for eliminating moderate fever, because moderate fever is actually helping the body stimulate white blood cells, which are disease fighting. And this moderate fever also inhibits the growth of many strains of disease causing bacteria. Okay, so moderate fever does two things. One is it stimulates the activity of these white blood cells, which are disease fighting. And secondly, it also inhibits the growth of many strains of disease causing bacteria. So these are the two things that moderate fever does. So these are good things. So it makes sense why the doctors are no longer recommending its use. Okay. If the statements above are true, which of the following conclusion is most strongly supported by the statements? Okay, it's an inference question. Option A, aspirin, an effective painkiller. Okay, uh, we are not really given that it's an effective painkiller, right? So, how is the statement strongly supported? Alleviates the pain and discomforts of many illnesses. It's not given to us that aspirin alleviates the pain and discomfort of many illnesses. It's just saying it has been proven to eliminate moderate fever. So we can't say this. Aspirin can prolong, right? So it can prolong. It's talking about a potential that aspirin has. Can prolong a patient's illness by eliminating moderate fever, helpful in fighting some diseases. Is there a potential that aspirin prolongs a patient's illness by eliminating moderate fever? Right, there is a potential because it's saying moderate fever is actually doing a couple of good things. It's stimulating the activity of disease fighting white blood cells, and also it's also inhibiting the growth of many strains of disease causing bacteria. So there is indeed a potential that aspirin can prolong a patient's illness because it's eliminating moderate fever, right? So option B is the answer. Aspirin inhibits, I think it should be inhibits, aspirin inhibits the growth of white blood cells. Is aspirin inhibiting the growth of white blood cells? Aspirin is eliminating moderate fever, which actually stimulates the activity of white blood cells. So moderate fever stimulates the activity, not the growth. So let's say there are 10 white blood cells, their activity is getting stimulated by moderate fever. We are not saying 10 are becoming 11 or 12. It stimulates the activity, and aspirin is really not letting that happen. So it's not allowing the stimulation of activity. So we are not in any case talking about the growth of white blood cells in any case. And even in terms of activity, it's not inhibiting the activity, it's just not allowing the stimulation of activity to happen, right? So, but if you say inhibits the activity, that would still be a close call because it's not allowing the stimulation of activity. Does it mean it's inhibiting the activity? I don't think so. That's a bit dicey. But for sure, it's not inhibiting the growth, right? We are not talking about the growth of white blood cells. We're just talking about the activity of those white blood cells. In terms of inhibiting the growth, we are talking about inhibiting the growth of these bacteria, not white blood cells, which are necessary for fighting some illnesses. Do we know white blood cells are necessary for fighting some illnesses? No. So how can we say this? How can we conclude this from the above information? We can't, right? So there are two very strong reasons to reject C. The more white blood cells a patient's body produces, okay, the more white blood cells, the less severe the patient's illness will be. It's saying the more white blood cells, the less severe the patient's illness. This we are not given at all, right? For example, there are we know that white blood cells are disease fighting. A lot of medicines are disease fighting, right? Does it mean the more medicine you take, the less severe the disease becomes? No. After a certain point, the medicine itself could be harmful to you, right? So we are not given that the more white blood cells a patient's body produces, the less severe the patient's illness will be. The focus of modern medicine is on inhibiting the growth of. Wow, this is a very sweeping statement. The focus of modern medicine is on what? We don't know. Just talking about aspirin and that some doctors are not recommending because it's eliminating moderate fever. Moderate fever could be useful. The focus of modern medicine, we have no idea. So option B is the answer.